Hey guys, and welcome to my complete guide for Winter Shopper Rupee. In this video, we will be taking a look at NIKKE's newest character to see how good she is, whether or not you should pull for her, and talk about how to use her effectively if you do decide to add her to your team. We'll be going over everything you need to know about Winter Shopper Rupee, so if you find this video useful, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and let's jump right in. Winter Shopper Rupee is arguably the most unique character in NIKKE so far. She is a character that brings a lot of new things in the game that helps cover some of the top tier characters' weak points, and she also opens up a lot of new team compositions that wouldn't have been possible without her kit. Before we go over the skills, I will quickly go over some of the basic information you need to know about Winter Shopper Rupee. First of all, she is an SSR assault rifle user classified as a defender, and she also has the electric element. She has a burst type 1, but because of how her burst skill works, she is more like a burst type 0 character, and we'll go over why that is in the skill section. The main thing you should know is that Winter Shopper Rupee is a character designed to act as a support, buffer, and tank for your team. You will mainly be using her because of her burst skill, Shopaholic Date, which is on a 20-second cooldown. This lets her taunt all of your enemies for 5 seconds, while Winter Rupee gains a good amount of lifesteal to give her a bit more survivability as she is actively tanking the damage from your enemies. Her burst also increases the reload speed for your allies for a pretty significant amount, and lastly, this also lets you re-enter burst skill stage 1. What this means is that you will be able to use 2 different burst skill once back to back with only a 1-second delay, as long as you are using Winter Rupee's burst skill first and if your other burst type 1 character only has a 20-second cooldown. This is important to keep in mind because if you try to use another burst type 1 character with a 40-second cooldown or more, you won't be able to get past the burst skill stage 1 until your second burst type 1 character is able to use their burst skill. This is not an issue for the first time you go through the burst meter, but on the second time and so on, your rotations will significantly be slower. This somewhat limits your team options because you are basically forced to use another burst type 1 character that only has a 20-second cooldown, but for most cases, this won't be an issue because majority of the best burst type 1 characters are on the 20-second cooldown. With that said, once you are in combat, you have to make sure that you keep your other burst type 1 character alive, because once they get downed, Winter Shopper Rupee will just be in a constant cycle of using her own burst over and over, not letting your team enter full burst mode. Hence what I said earlier that Winter Shopper Rupee acts more like a burst type 0 character instead of a burst type 1, because she can't let your team enter full burst mode if she's the only burst type 1 character on the field. This skill is very strong overall, but you have to take note of the things that I just went over for when you are building your teams, because you will essentially be building around her more or less. Moving on to her skill 1, Winter Premium. This activates when the last bullet hits the target, and this increases your team's defense by a pretty significant amount for 5 seconds. Her skill 1 in combination of her skill 2 will give your team a pretty sizable increase in their defense. Her second skill, VIP Gift, has a shopping passive that increases your team's defense %, and this effect stacks up to 4 times and lasts for 20 seconds. Aside from the defense buff, the main thing you need from this skill is the burst gauge loading speed increase, which is triggered after you reach 4 stacks of the shopping passive at the end of the full burst mode. This loading speed buff is applied to all of your allies, which means it basically increases your team's burst loading speed by almost 40% at level 10. When it comes to her skill upgrade priority, I would recommend that you prioritize her burst skill just because the reload speed increase is extremely valuable for your team's damage output. Plus the increased survivability she gets from the lifesteal is also really good. Next, you would want to go for her skill 2 so that you can further improve the burst loading speed. And then you can save the skill 1 for last, maybe leaving it at level 4 and then focusing your resources on the other skills. Moving on, let's talk about Winter Shopper Rupee's team compositions. There's a lot of ways you can go about making a team for her, but the main team formation will be a 2-1-2 formation. A 2-1-2 formation basically means that you will be running 2 burst type 1 characters, 1 burst type 2, and 2 burst type 3. This will be the go-to formation for most players, just because this is the most balanced formation, giving you a good amount of support from your burst 1 units and a pretty good amount of DPS from your 2 burst type 3 characters, and maybe even from your burst type 2 character. As I mentioned in the earlier section of this video, you would optimally run Winter Shopper Rupee with another burst type 1 character with a 20-second cooldown, as it lets you get faster rotations. You can technically run her with a burst type 2 character that has a 40-second cooldown if let's say you want to put her in a shotgun core team. But in teams where you either have a burst 1 or burst 2 character that has a 40-second cooldown, there will roughly be around 15 seconds of cooldown left on the burst skill that has a 40-second cooldown once you get to their burst phase. So what you can do is that you can delay Winter Rupee's burst skill by 9 seconds or so that you will be able to use the 40-second burst skill within the burst phase. This would not be as optimal as having all burst type 1 and 2 characters on a 20-second cooldown, but I just thought that I would bring this up just in case you ever need to make a similar team to this. Moving on, I just wanted to make a dedicated section for the characters that will benefit the most from Winter Shopper Rupee. There are a lot of characters that work well and benefit a lot from her kit, but there's also some that are just on a completely different level when you include them in a team with Winter Rupee. The very first character that comes to mind is Scarlet. Winter Rupee will help Scarlet with her reload speed, which she really needs, because Scarlet has one of the longest reload times in the game, especially considering that she is an assault rifle user. In combination with other characters like Privity and Atme, your team's reload speed will easily be just a split second during full burst mode. And of course, this is not exclusive to Scarlet. Any character that has a very slow reload speed will highly benefit from Winter Rupee, especially if you add more characters that also increase reload speed like Privity and Atme. Before I give my overall thoughts, I also wanted to quickly go over her design. I don't normally do this in my guide videos, but since this has been a very talked about topic about Winter Rupee, I just thought that I would give my 2 cents in. First of all, she still looks great even with the design adjustments. I'm not really losing sleep over the fact that they censored her design, I'm just bothered by how they did it. I also want to bring up that the frills on her back actually move, but the shadows don't, so that's probably something they overlooked when they designed her look at the last minute. Also, if you look at her chibi version, it still has the old design, so those are just a few things I noticed upon closer inspection. Overall, Winter Shopper Rupee is a very strong supporting character that brings a lot of new things in the game. She fits very well in pretty much any team composition, so if you have her or you are planning to pull for her, you can use her optimally using the information I covered in this video. As always, if you found this video useful, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.